If you're interested in JFK research, then there's a network just for you. It's called the Firehorse Network. So just say into your phone, Firehorse Network, and it's JFK 24/7. So we're going to be running JFK shows from number 1 all the way to number 151. It's the new JFK Show, streaming all the time on firehorsenetwork.com.
All right, welcome to the new JFK Show number 155, and we're gonna flip our half-hour hourglass over, and we're gonna have Don, Larry, and myself contribute to the show tonight. So, Dr. Professor, welcome to the show. I'd like to announce something that on Firehorse Network, if y'all would like to hear JFK 24/7, go to Firehorse Network and you can hear all of our shows, and it's going all JFK. So if you go to Firehorse Network, it's all JFK all the time. So if you're at work, you can stream. They're like radio shows. And then we run ads, you know, for the Moonrock books and all that. So that's what we're doing. So appreciate everyone for being here. We're going to go ahead, hit the screen share. And here we go. All right, so what we're going to do, Mark Lane is a mixed bag. The last couple of shows, we've discussed that, but he did some serious groundbreaking work. And even Dr. Professor said he hadn't seen this in its entirety. But I'd be willing to bet that he's seen all of the clips in bits and pieces. So we're going to go ahead and start it up. Let me make sure that the speaker's up, and we should be ready to go. All right, so I'm not even sure what's coming up, so it'll be sort of random with us all, and everyone at home can make their own comments as well.
It has a soundtrack, I suppose.
A soundtrack that Paul McCartney nearly came up with.
I really don't know what the situation is, John. Nobody has told me anything except I know nothing more than that. To request for someone to come forward to give me legal assistance. No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question. You have been charged. Sir? You have been charged. How did you like that? I put it in 50. Here comes Oswald down the hall again. You find that rifle? That's as fast as you people have been getting, but I emphatically deny these charges. Oswald has hustled through a doorway. And he told anybody to kill the president. He hasn't admitted killing the president. There he was.
All right, let's maybe stop right there and discuss that a little bit. That's probably one of the most famous clips of evidence that we have, don't you think?
Wouldn't it have been interesting if he said, "That's absurd because I was in the doorway watching the motorcade when it passed by"?
That's what he told Will Fritz that. He didn't scream it here. He was screaming he was a patsy, though. So there you go. So Larry, what do you think about this clip in general, and also being in Rush to Judgment? These are all clips from Rush to Judgment.
Yeah, and they keep getting better as we go here, as we go. Shirley Martin actually gave Mark Lane a lot of the leads on the people in Dallas, the witnesses in Dallas that we're going to see hopefully here tonight. And so Mark Lane, you know, once he had that network already established, you know, with the other researchers, that were starting to investigate the case. They started to collaborate between one another, and this is obviously one of the results of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Don, what you got?
Well, I don't think I can add much more than what you guys have already chimed in with. These are pretty famous clips from most students of the JFK assassination. They should be familiar with these.
Yeah.
These
you got
songs.
that right. So here we go.
Well, I don't know what he said. He says he didn't do it. We're still working on the evidence. This has been a joint effort by the Secret Service, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Dallas Police Department, the Dallas Sheriff's Office, my office, and Captain Will Fritz has been in charge of it. How would you describe his mood during the question?
Wow, there, the elusive man in charge, wouldn't you say? I just find that he's got the FBI, the park rangers are involved. What do you say?
Who, Jesse Curry?
No, we're about to have Jesse Curry, but I just find it impressive that they mentioned everyone that was involved in the investigation, and the FBI, is right at the top, and we know who that was.
Well, the FBI was in complete damage control there that weekend, and there were a lot of different there was a lot of different information coming from different sources, in Dallas, starting on that Friday. One of those was a rumor, a so-called rumor that Oswald was an FBI informant, number S-179 or something like that.
179, yeah.
Yeah, and this happened to have come from the Houston Chronicle, and it was reported by a reporter by the name of Lonnie Hudkins. When this came out, I believe this was published on the 23rd or something like that. Immediately, they started to, investigate who leaked this information to the press, and from there it was picked up by virtually, a lot of the other newspapers and the media. But over immediately, screamed the bloody murder. Suppress that, but the damage was already done. Now, the source supposedly of this information came from Bill Alexander, the assistant DA, and that's that was Lonnie's source. Obviously, it was denied, but once, the toothpaste was out of the tube, there was no way that they were going to be able to put that back in. So that's how the informant thing started there in Dallas.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Wait. Now, Jesse Curry, the more you listen to him, the less convinced you see that he is, that they have the right man.
Very arrogant. Has been all along. What do you say, Chief? He just denies everything. How do you sum him up as a man, based on your experience with criminal types? Oh, I think it's a man that planned this murder weeks or months ago and has laid his plans carefully and carried them out, and has planned at that time what he's going to tell the police that are questioning him at present. He didn't give any motive that he denies the motive. As we understand it, no one actually saw this man pull the trigger of the rifle that apparently killed the president. Is that correct? That is correct up to this time in our investigation. What about the ballistic test? The ballistic test, we haven't had a final report, but it is, I understand, will be favorable. You think the smudged fingerprints that have been found on the rifle which killed the president will be able to establish the identity of the killer? We hope so, but I couldn't say positive this time if they will be.
Man.
Yeah. Curry, a little less than convincing there, huh?
Right. And Wade has already gotten the call from the FBI about the investigation is under control. There's one man, and just go ahead and close it down. In fact, that was on the men who killed Kennedy. in fact.
And of course, the fingerprint, the palm print on the rifle, they didn't get that until after Oswald was in the morgue.
Yeah, believe it or not, I personally know a person who really knows the funeral parlor who let the guy in, who saw them with who had to wash off the ink off his hand, Oswald's hands. And another thing, I had a party in Bay St. Louis, and Jasper Garrison was there, and he sang a song with us in our band, Honky Tonk Woman. So that was really nice. We got to talk a lot about his dad, Jim Garrison. So just a little pointer there. So Dr. Fetzer, what do you say about Jesse Curry and the fingerprints?
Well, Jesse's not quite sure exactly how they're going to frame Oswald. So,
Well,
I think he was in many ways left out of the loop because he was simply not competent to become involved in an assassination. So I think he was just played. He was out there as a front man. He didn't really know what was going on. Many of the others, of course, were aware of it and complicit in framing Oswald.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always thought he was an honest man. By looking at him, he just seems to be honest. And you're right. If you're an honest guy, you're out of the loop.
Don't forget also that one of the first battery of tests on Oswald were the paraffin tests. Okay.
Nitrate, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, when it comes out negative for his cheek, and a pseudo positive for his hands, obviously because Oswald worked, his work, involved touching, a lot of nitrates and so forth.
Well, I worked in a book depository, and books are printed in ink, and ink contains nitrate. So yes.
So.
And it was doubly exonerating because not only did he have no nitrates on his cheek, but the fact that he still had nitrates on his hand showed that he hadn't washed the cheek off of the nitrates off his cheek using his hands, which had washed them off his hands as well. So he hadn't fired a rifle. He could have fired a handgun, but there's an innocent explanation for the nitrates on his hand.
Yeah. So that's what Curry right now is involved in, talking to all these reporters because they're after him. Hey, what physical evidence do you have against it?
Don't you think an old creaky bolt action rifle would be kicking out a lot of debris when it shoots?
At this time, we can't tell.
I don't know whether it would be enough to convict him or not if we can put his prints on the rifle, or certainly would connect him with the rifle.
We want to say that this investigation has been carried on jointly by the FBI, the Secret Service, the Rangers, and the Dallas Police Department. Captain Fritz has been in charge.
Has he made any admissions at all about the shooting of the police officer?
No, he denies everything.
I would say that without any doubt, he's the killer. The law says beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty, which there's no question that he was the killer of President Kennedy.
And will you ask death in the electric chair for Lee Oswald?
Yes, sir. We'll ask the death penalty.
How many cases of this type have you been involved in? That is, where the death penalty is involved.
Since I've been district attorney, I've asked the death penalty in 24 cases.
How many times have you obtained it?
23.
This man.
Wow. And Henry Wade got the call. No doubt about it.
He's the one of Roe v. Wade fame, by the way.
And there was Fritz. Why did Jesse Curry come out and say the same thing that Henry Wade? It's like they were told to say this, that the Rangers were involved, the FBI, the Secret Service. Boy, was he correct that the Secret Service were involved. So no doubt about that. So, all right, here we go.
Subversive background. Was there any surveillance? Were police aware of his presence in Dallas?
We and the police department here did not know he was in Dallas. I understand the FBI did know that he was in Dallas.
There you go.
For the FBI to inform the police.
Yes.
Chief, do you have?
We did not have.
You were not informed.
We had not been informed of this man.
Chief, do you have any concern for the safety of your prisoner in view of the high feeling?
You were saying something, Larry?
No, this is obviously after Lonnie's article I was talking about earlier, because everybody's asking him, hey, what's going on? This guy was an informant.
Well, there, I like that where they the reporter asked him if he's concerned about Oswald's safety.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the question of the day. But boy, was he in for a surprise.
He hasn't answered the question yet either.
Yeah.
The people of Dallas over the assassination of the president. No, but precautions necessary. Precautions will be taken, of course.
Yeah, we've got to leave. There it is. There it comes. Another prisoner.
That's just before he's shot. That's when they're taking him down to be assassinated.
He's sacrificed.
Here's the scrum.
He's about to say that Lee Harvey Oswald has expired. But my goodness, how many times have we seen that clip and we have to look at it in a completely different way now? With the scrum that Don's talking about, the sack over his head, rushing him into a police room. It's just amazing how far
No. And then LBJ calls the operating room and talks to Crenshaw and wants to get a deathbed confession. You know?
He said, "There's a man in the room right now." So, well, he think that's some power to have a man in the room of the hospital waiting on the confession. Lyndon Johnson, a snake in the grass, boy. You know.
And by the way, appears to have been, Sanchez Morales, David Sanchez Morales in the trench coat.
Wow, just amazing. All right, so here we go. Oswald has expired.
Expired at 1:07 p.m. He died.
1 week after the assassination, President Kennedy's successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, appointed a President's Commission with Chief Justice Earl Warren as chairman. The other members were Senator Richard Russell of Georgia, Senator John Sherman Cooper of Kentucky, Representative Hale Boggs, Louisiana, Representative Gerald R. Ford, Michigan, Allen W. Dulles, former director of the CIA, and John J. McCloy, former chairman, Chase Manhattan Bank.
All right. We just have to stop there and talk about these guys, huh? Is this the Federal Reserve right here? Is this the bankers?
Yeah, Chase Manhattan Bank. Yeah. I was gonna say you can ring the bell there for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, we had there's our boy right there.
Dulles. Yep.
Whose brother happened to be the mayor in Dallas, Texas.
No. You're talking about Charles Cabell.
Cabell, right? That's right.
Yeah.
They worked close together, though.
Right. Well, he was his deputy. Cabell and Bissell were dismissed by JFK, and then Dulles was retired.
Now, if you fired a guy and then you got assassinated, would you really want the guy you fired in the investigation?
It's always been the laughingstock of JFK right there. You know?
Nobody ever questioned that, right, Don?
Dulles spent all his time convincing the other members that it was typical that American assassins were lone nuts.
Yeah.
Ignoring the fact that there were multiple, the attempt on Lincoln was simultaneously accompanied by an attempt on his vice president and on his secretary of state. And 4 of the conspirators were hung on the same gallows at the same time, including the first woman put to death by the United States.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's march on with Jesse Curry.
What does that mean? It only means that he fired a gun.
Yes, I'm going that the paraffin test showed that he had recently fired a gun. It was on both hands. Both hands.
He's just making this up.
Investigation showed he was the only.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Fetzer.
Well, he's saying that nitrates on his hand showed he'd fired with both hands. It's ridiculous because there were no nitrates on his cheek. He hadn't fired a rifle. And we've already discussed how the nitrates got on his hands. I mean, this is a ridiculous claim for a district attorney to make. Unless, of course, he's out to frame an innocent man, in which case it makes eminent sense.
He was directed to do all that. He was directed to do that. He had been FBI.
I know he got a phone call from either Lyndon or Jenkins, his close administrative assistant, directing him to stop talking about conspiracies. You got your man.
Right. That was J. Edgar Hoover, wasn't it? Just well, everyone was telling him. We know he got the call.
No, it was either Lyndon or Walter Jenkins, who was his, another of his highest level aides.
Jenkins, okay.
Missing employee. This description and name was broadcast. Caught a bus at Lamar Street. But part of the way to his address over in Oak Cliff.
Was Oswald on the bus?
While on the bus, he told the bus driver the president had just been shot, and later told a driver that he'd been shot and laughed at the time.
It would indicate that it was his intention to kill the president.
Yes.
Wow.
Just making stuff up.
I mean, don't you think that he had to feel a little stupid telling that story, that the assassin had his pocket change and got on the bus and told, everyone would say that the president has been shot.
Yeah, earlier Curry was talking about how Oswald had planned this out for months, and then a couple minutes later they're talking about how he got on a bus after the assassination.
Yeah, boy, there's nothing more concrete than a plan when you're going to catch the bus. They're always on time.
Yeah,
as I've observed before, the first case of an assassin making his escape by public transportation.
Yeah. And what about going to his house and all that? Larry's already walked it himself. We could go on. I think we have shows on every point made so far.
The presidential motorcade entered the plaza from Main Street. Turn north on Houston Street and southwest on Elm Street. The commission decided that the shots came from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, while the limousine was here. Directly in front and above the limousine is the triple overpass, a railroad bridge. To the right, on top of a grassy knoll.
Frame-by-frame study of film taken at the time proved that 2 of the shots occurred within 1.8 seconds, an impossibility. The commission agreed that the rifle could not be operated that quickly. Commission counsel Rankin stated, to say they were hit by separate bullets is synonymous with saying that they were 2 assassins. But 2 assassins did not fit, so a new assumption was made. 1 bullet struck both the president and the governor, a 1 bullet, 2 victim theory.
Notice he used the Cadillac instead of the Lincoln.
Remarried.
Governor Hunt.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about in recent weeks here, the single bullet theory was not the product of a ballistics expert or a military sharpshooter.
Yeah, do we have real murder experts coming in and discussing everything? Did they have measurements? No, we had a room full of lawyers.
Yeah, we had a room full of
Jewish lawyers.
Jewish lawyers, correct.
No investigators. No, not
historians.
Historians on top of that.
Jewish historians.
Jewish historians, yeah. Nobody who experienced with military, with high-powered, gunshot wounds made this determination.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Looks like John Connolly is in the ball.
1 bullet struck both the president and the governor, a 1 bullet, 2 victim theory.
See, how can they be even attempting to reconstruct it without using the Lincoln?
Yeah, well, it's the FBI.
In a press conference,
Unquestionably, when the first shot was fired, I recognized it as a shot. I thought of nothing else but it was a rifle shot. I turned to my right. I had time to think. I had time to react. And I turned to my right to look back over my right shoulder to see if I could see anything unusual, particularly to see if I could catch him out of the corner of my eye. Because I immediately thought, he had made a of an assassination. The moment I heard the shot, I didn't see anything except just the general blur of waving of people moving. Nothing really unusual. I did not see the president out of the corner of my eye, and I was in the process of turning back to look over my left shoulder. And had about come to the point where I was looking straight forward again, when I felt the impact of the bullet that hit me, which entered the right posterior chest, close to the shoulder blade, and coursed downward along the chest wall, taking out and fragmenting a portion of the fifth rib on the right. The bullet then emerged from the chest, evidently struck his right wrist, fracturing the lower portion of the right radius, and then entered the left thigh where it was spent. I am convinced beyond any question of a doubt that the first shot that was fired did not hit me. Then I was hit. And I was not then, and I have no memory, no recollection of the sound of the shot that hit me. And beyond any question of a doubt, the third shot,
The hard evidence which conclusively demolishes the commission's case.
All right. Pretty basic stuff there, but they're running out of bullets, according to John Connolly.
You know, that 399, well, technically they say it's not pristine, but it obviously did not hit bones or flesh or, you know, limo or windshield, nothing like that. It looks like it was fired into either cotton or like a bucket of water.
Yeah, I mean, the doctor did name a bunch of wounds, but he didn't even get to the ones through Kennedy yet, and the bullet was spent by that time. So
yeah, they took more lead out of John Connolly than was missing from 399.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Santa Cruz.
From his wrist alone, and
Yeah.
there's a big chunk left in his thigh.
Yeah.
Even Robert Shaw. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Even Robert Shaw, the Dr. Shaw, in that same conference said, "Hey, you know, we had to leave, you know, a big chunk of bullet in his thigh, you know, because, you know, he's in no danger right now, so we'll just deal with that later."
It's too funny.
One of the governor's wounds that were missing from this foot. The commission's autopsy expert, Commander Jones, testified, "I do not understand how it could possibly have left fragments in the wrist. As to the fragments in the governor's thigh wound," Commander Jones added, "I cannot conceive of where they came from this missile."
Yes, Sam.
All right. Now, here's the part that I was looking forward to getting on to the witnesses. So they're going to have one witness after another, and we'll be discussing that. So, all right, here we go. Sam Holland, our hero.
Also stated, as you know, Mr. Holland, that the same bullet which hit Governor Connolly first struck President Kennedy. Based upon what you observed from that position just above the street on the overpass, is that possible?
No, that one commission is in error on that, because I was an eyewitness to that, and I know that the same bullet that hit President Kennedy did not hit Governor Connolly. The first bullet, the president slumped over, and Governor Connolly made his turn to the right and then back to the left. And that's when the second shot was fired and knocked him down in the floorboard. And it would have been impossible for him to turn had the bullet hit, the same bullet hit him that went through the president's neck.
And did you see the effect of the next bullet which struck.
Dr. Fester, you got to talk to us about that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, John Conley was real clear that he wasn't hit by the same bullet, that he turned to the right, then it was when he turned back to the left that he felt this doubling up in his chest, which was clearly by a separate wound. And we know, of course, no bullet passed through the back of the neck. I mean, this was a theory that wasn't even being advocated at this point in time, to the best of my knowledge.
He's also talking about the president slumping, like you always talk about.
Right. He slumps forward after he's hit in the back of the head, and then Jackie eases him back up and is looking him right in the face when he's hit by the frangible or exploding bullet in the right temple that sets up shockwaves that blow his brains out of the back of his already weakened cranium to the left rear with such force that when they hit Bobby Hargis riding there, initially thinks he himself has been shot.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to take a break. This is the new JFK Show number 155.
If you're interested in JFK research, then there's a network just for you. It's called the Firehorse Network. So just say into your phone, Firehorse Network, and it's JFK 24/7. So we're going to be running JFK shows from number 1 all the way to number 151. It's the new JFK Show, streaming all the time on firehorsenetwork.com.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
All right, welcome back. And if you have time, if you like hardcore JFK research while you're at work, go to Firehorse Network. It's JFK all the time. So, and also go to patriotradiobooks.com. And we've got all of the new books right there. So let's get into our second half. We were talking about Sam Holland and saying that the president slumped. It's like
one thing Sam Holland in this video, Gary, is that the way he describes what happened in that limousine, if you listen to that again, it's exactly what you see in the Zapruder film. You know, I mean, as far as the actions of JFK and Connolly are concerned, he's describing it exactly. And this is 1964. He's never seen the Zapruder film. Okay, so that's what's so amazing about S.M. Holland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here we go.
I saw the effect of the next bullet struck the president. Because it flipped him over almost on his stomach and the side of his head, and his head was laying on the edge of the seat. He was laying more on his stomach, and his foot was laying over the car, edge of the car, upside down.
That's not JFK's foot.
Yeah, talk to us about that. I know you've done a lot of work about that.
Yeah, that's the David Miller photograph, and we've proven that that's not JFK's foot. That's Clinton's foot.
I find this part of Sam Holland's testimony a bit troubling.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, the guy seems as sincere as the day is long.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's possible you didn't see exactly what you saw. I always thought that he was just spelling it out. It never occurred to me they might be incorrect about that, but I never did put 2 and 2 together. So, all right, here we go. Okay, let me bounce it along.
Was sealed up.
Here we go. I'll edit it.
Mr. Bowers, what is your present occupation? I'm Vice President of Lockwood Meadows Incorporated, which is a real estate land development company. And where were you employed on November 22nd, 1963? At that time, I was employed as a tower operator for the Union Terminal Company. And where were you at about 12:30 that day? I was at the south end of the terminal of the tower building, or rather looking down toward the terminal and observing the motorcade as was everyone else in the area. Could you tell us what you heard and what you saw from about 12 noon until the time the shots were fired? Well, for some time that morning, since perhaps 10 o'clock in the morning, we had had the area pretty well sealed off, and the policemen had been stationed on the triple underpass as well as other strategic corners in the area, so that there was very little traffic moving into this area at this time. This is a dead-end area which is used primarily for parking. After 11 or 11:30, there was practically no movement in the area whatsoever. However, about 12:10, give or take 5 minutes, there was a car which entered the area and probed around for some time. This car was a 59 Oldsmobile station wagon with a out-of-state license. It was muddy as if it had just come in off of the road from some area where it was a red sandy area. It was occupied by one male who spent 3 or 4 minutes in the area looking it over, and then as he found out, left by the entrance, which is the only way in and out of the area at that time. Not too long after that, perhaps 5 or 6 minutes, a car of a totally different description, also occupied by one male, entered the area. Now, this man performed a similar action, and he toured down around the area, probing to examine the exits, and seemed at one or more occasions to have a mic or something resembling such an instrument up to his face. Just a few moments after that, the third car came into the area, and these were the only 3 cars that entered this area during this specific period. The third car was a 61 or 2 Chevrolet. This car was muddy all the way up to the windows as if it had just come in off the road. It had an out-of-state license, identical to the first car of the series. And it also had political stickers on it, which were not only for the same candidate, but were identical in nature and color, so that they appeared to have been from the same group. This car was occupied by one male who spent a little bit more time in the area than the others, and probed down by the side of the tower where I was located. I could not state that these cars left the area entirely, because after they got back onto the extension of Elm Street in front of the school depository building, they were lost to my vision, so that they could have remained very close by.
Holland?
Wow.
Pause.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know. This is the first time I've ever heard or realized, that Lee Bowers worked as a railroad there in the control tower operator. Directing traffic and everything. Obviously, he gives you a lot of detail. Maybe it would be safe to assume that he always had binoculars. So in his line of work, he had to be able to identify, boxcars and trains and everything, going back and forth, So, he obviously would have been able to use binoculars looking at all of the things that he saw that he recalls, so well there. The other thing that I noted there is that he was in that line of work, but then not even a year later, he's already a vice president for a land development company. What's going on there, Jim?
Well, that's a good point, Larry. He may have been promoted to take his mind off of more disturbing matters.
I mean, he says it right there, you know, and the way that he's dressed and everything, you know, he's an executive, he's a vice president now, you know. You know.
And of course, he appears to have been the party who called back the train, you know, when he noticed something funny was going on in one of the boxcars in order for the three tramps to be arrested.
Yeah, yes, he did. He did. He stopped all traffic there. Yeah, he did.
And remember, he was one that was in an automobile accident, a single car.
Right, and he seemed to be horrified. They couldn't tell what had killed him, but it was something that startled him.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Another one of those convenient deaths.
Yes, there have been quite a few.
I was standing on top of the triple underpass, waiting for the parade in the president's car. I arrived about 11:45 or close to noon. Two policemen was talking to me and asked me, one of them asked me if I would come back up there and identify the people that had any business or had a right to be up there.
They would be railroad employees.
They'd be railroad employees, and I told him I would.
And what was your position with the railroad company?
Track and signal supervisor for the Union Terminal Railroad. Put in 41 years of railroad service in the signal corps.
Did you look in any particular direction when you heard the shots?
Yes. Looked over to where I thought the shot came from. And I saw a puff of smoke still lingering underneath the trees in front of the wooden fence. The report sounded like it came from behind the wooden fence. And a policeman throwed his motorcycle down in the middle of the street and run up the embankment with his pistol drawn. He was running toward that particular spot. And also another motorcycle policeman right behind him tried to ride up the embankment on his motorcycle, and it turned over about halfway up the embankment.
There you go, Larry. Officer Jackson motoring up.
You know, there's a lot of action going on there, Jim, that we don't see in any of the videos or films.
Yeah.
What's going on?
These guys have excellent memories. Of course, it was an indelible experience to be observing the assassination of a president of the United States.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, SM Holland could have been mistaken because the Zfilm doesn't.
Very funny, Don.
Now we've talked about, I've always thought that the puff of smoke could have been a diversionary tactic, and Larry and I were talking about that the other day. What do you think, Larry? That because it always appeared to me that
for sure, there's a lot of witness testimony that talks about streamers and firecrackers, and I know that also the sound of bullets hitting a windshield, you know, could have been also what some people heard, but there was still a lot of mention of streamers, okay, and streamers are a completely special device, okay, which, and you know, like I said, you know, a few people testified, and also firecrackers, you know, and cherry bombs, that kind of thing, okay. Right. So yeah, when you have silenced weapons in this type of operation, you have to have diversionary tactics. So
what here is a diversion. And it just, what do you think about this, Dr. Fetzer, that the puff of smoke could have been a diversion because everyone really did run straight up there?
Oh, another thing about rifles, you know, modern rifles, you know, the gunpowder is virtually smokeless.
Makes sense to me. What do you think, Dr. Fetzer?
Well, I think the streamers are the more interesting. Where do they originate? Where were they observed? I mean, that's fascinating.
Beverly Bronson.
Around the intersection of Elm and Houston. In fact,
Houston and Elm streamers. But where did they come from? From a building?
Could have been thrown from a second floor or third floor of the TSPD. Actually, in the Alton 6, Beverly Bronson suspected there is a device on the hood of LBJ's car. And it looks like the windshield wiper but it's not. It's a totally independent device, something on there, an object of some sort that's on there, and it's long, and you know, and she surmised that was a spent streamer, because even all the occupants of that car, for example, Ralph Yarborough, talked about the smell of gunpowder, you know, of smoke at street level, and that the car itself was still reeking of gunpowder when it pulled into Parkland. Okay.
Well, what's interesting about the gunpowder is it couldn't possibly have been related to shots fired from the 6th floor of the book deposit.
That's right. Exactly.
And there are too many witnesses who report it for it to not have been present.
That's right.
But why it would be, I wouldn't view it as a distraction. I think just one of the weapons that was used emitted the smoke.
Yeah, diversionary tactics, and you know, and then you get the real snipers, you know, in concealed places, like for example under the triple pass, you know, using silenced weapons. You know, that's why Beverly said that the reactions of Connolly and Kennedy did not coincide with what people heard, because she read a lot of the testimony and what people heard.
Yeah.
Fire the shots, you know, and she was trying to piece that together with the Zapruder film, and she said, "Hey, you know, these just do not match up." So it was obvious to her that silenced weapons were used.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, very good, very astute, good work by her.
Yeah, if you go to the triple overpass, if you would really run around, it is not that many steps where you would have to see someone. You would just have to. And those guys said they ran around, they didn't see anything with cigarette butts and all that. I don't know. I really am suspicious of the cloud of smoke.
Motorcycle, I left it laying there and run on over to the fence with his gun in his hand.
Where do you think the shots came from?
Well, I know where that third shot came from.
Where did that shot come from?
Behind the picket fence.
Is there any
Close to the little plaza.
Is there any doubt in your mind that that shot came from behind?
There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind in the statement that I made in the sheriff's office immediately after the shooting, and the statement that I made to the Warren Commission. And I made it very plain there was no doubt in my mind there was definitely a shot fired from behind that picket fence. I made it plain to the Warren Commission, and I think I made the same statement in the sheriff's office. There was a fourth shot.
On November 22nd, Mr. Holland, did you?
So the Dallas Police Department was completely in on it.
Sheriff's Department too.
Yeah.
And of course the FBI.
Yeah, everyone, he said the
Not
FBI.
to mention the Secret Service.
No, on top of the list.
And the Warren Commission was the first one, he said. All of my statements, they ignored every one of them.
Well, his testimony all by itself refutes the claim that there was no conspiracy or multiple shooters. I mean,
the Warren Commission
all by himself.
Yeah, the Warren Commission hated S.M. Holland, you know?
Yeah, talk to us, Don, before we go on.
Yeah, Holland had some pretty devastating testimony.
He sure looks like a rock solid witness. I mean, this guy is serious.
He was a railroad supervisor.
Oh, and he said 41 years experience. That means in 1963, he had been working in that field since the 20s.
Yeah. No nonsense. No nonsense at all.
The sheriff's office, in an affidavit you signed that day, that you saw a puff of smoke come from behind the picket fence.
I am certain I did.
Was it the general feeling, would you say, Mr. Holland, among the police officers and others, at the moment that the shots were fired, that at least one shot came from behind that wooden fence?
There's about 6 or 8 of us boys on the Union Terminal run around there to find some evidence that there was someone around there. Certainly the ones that was with me that run around that fence. realize what was happening.
All right. That's my evidence right there. He said 6 or 8 of us boys ran around there and we didn't see anything. So I really highly suspect a diversionary shot, because wasn't the real shooter underneath in the sewer drain, Dr. Fetzer?
Gary, not on my account or David Mantic's, not on the sewer at the curbside. These were above ground sewer openings at the left and right of the triple underpass, where the intersection of the fence comes together. That is
at the end of the fence. That's what I'm talking about. I know.
Yeah.
So that would make sense here, wouldn't it?
Amazingly, those two, that the storm drain on the north curb of Elm and that storm drain that Jim's talking about, they actually connect. It goes under the sidewalk, and then it goes to the right if you're going down Elm Street, and then it goes up towards that opening there. Like it's right there at the corner where the fence meets the railing of the triple overpass.
Yeah, according to Tom Wilson's work with the Mormon photo, he traced the shot down to the storm drain on the curb there at the bottom of the steps.
But David and I went there. David actually climbed down in the sewer there, and it was the wrong angle. The trajectory, the ballistics just didn't work. I know that a lot of people, including Tom Wilson, believe it, but it doesn't seem to add up.
Well, I understand from the work of John Judge that he examined that many times, and he reported that had been altered. It had been remodeled after the assassination.
They poured semen in it where you couldn't get in anymore.
Yeah, they used to, in his words, it used to reach all the way up to his neck, and then after they filled out the bottom there, it would only reach up to your waist, and that was quite a difference. And also the opening had changed completely. It was a lot more of an opening than it was later on. And what a lot of other people have also noted about the asphalt being accumulating, building up even more. So that's that could be, it's just something that is still up in the air because of the remodeling.
But the wounds are accountable without appealing to that curbside sewer opening.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's a more plausible hypothesis that Frank Sturgis, who's acknowledged actually firing the shot, was at that location and fired the shot that entered the right temple. Now, it seems to me the sewer just doesn't work. It would come out the top of his head, not the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
But Blender's kind of pointing towards it being an actual spot, isn't it, Larry?
Well, you also have to take into account the tilt of JFK's head, which is 60 degrees towards the front. So that also comes into play. Also, the downslope of Elm Street, so there's a lot of different.
Well, I think we look forward to further Blender revelations, Larry.
Oh, yeah. We'll get them.
Okay, Larry, go ahead.
The reflections. If Jim wants to go ahead and read this, because I talk about some of your books here, Jim. So let's plug.
November 22nd, 1963 turned out to be a beautiful day after some morning showers had dissipated, leaving a clear sky which allowed plenty of sunshine to greet President Kennedy's motorcade. A photograph snapped by Walter Cisco is probably one of the most popular images ever seen of the motorcade as it made its way down Main Street toward the killing zone in Dealey Plaza. Notice the prominence of the reflections off of the vehicles. They look like mirrors. And of course, the larger version of which this is a crop was on the cover of my book. Yeah, there you go to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we have it. Right. There we have Rafael Cruz and Antonio Veciana, the founder of Alpha 66. Yeah. Very nice, Larry. This is the same photograph which adorns the cover of Assassination Science edited by Jim Fetzer, published in 1998 and considered the first of his trilogy of groundbreaking books, which came after the ARB forced the release of numerous documents. The other two, of course, are Murder in Dealey Plaza, 2000, and The Great Zapruder Film Hoax, 2003. In all three of these books, Dr. Fetzer allowed the very best experts in the world in their particular field to present their research on many different aspects of the JFK assassination. Speaking of the Zapruder film today, I would like to focus on something that's bothered me since I became aware of the great Beverly Brunson's research of the late 1960s. Brunson puzzled over the fact that reflections were clearly visible on the side of the limousine before the Stemmons freeway sign blocked Zapruder's view of the limousine, but disappeared after the limo reemerged. That is a very stunning observation.
Oh, yeah, and she didn't have any video or technology or anything. That's what's so incredible here about this. Just the underline here, Jim, just the underline.
Yeah, and he can't be too far in the rear for Zapruder to have caught him in the picture, since he has had to turn his head to look back at the president.
Yeah, that's James Chaney. That's James Chaney. That's James Chaney.
He is next to the car, and Gary went too far.
Yeah.
He is next to the car and up on it, yet he does not enter in Z255 at all. And I think possibly this is a paint job. That would explain all the blue paint, and it would explain the sudden cessation of reflections on the body of the limousine after the waving man disappears. She's a pretty perceptive gal, wasn't she?
Well, you know, and the thing about this is that the blue paint that we're going to see now, because, you know, she's, you know, it's exactly, you know, what we're talking about. And this is what she was referring to. This is frame 193. Okay, go ahead.
This is what she was referring to. See the arrows. As seen in the Cisco photographs and all other photographs for that matter, there are clearly defined reflections on all the vehicles seen in the Zapruder film, including JFK's SX-100 1961 Lincoln Continental, all except when the limousine comes out from behind the freeway sign. As a matter of logic, one would expect the reflection to become more prominent as the limousine approaches Zapruder's position, when in fact the opposite is what happens.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about here. You know, given, you know, we don't see, you know, that much of the body, you know, of the car there. We see, but we see a pretty good chunk, okay? And there's nothing there. There's, you know, absolutely nothing there. And then, as we have mentioned before, you know, in our blender scenes, he isn't seen there at all, you know. So, you know, either he's disappeared into the sprocket hole, you know, but you know, you would have been able to see at least some of him, you know.
No,
just don't see it.
Yeah, you know, I've always been troubled by the limousine disappearing. If Zapruder had his handheld camera, he would have kept it fixed on the vehicles, and you wouldn't have had the loss of centering, which in my opinion is consistent with the use of a tripod, which isn't going to have that following capability because of its rigid orientation.
Yeah. In the vertical plane.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Not surprisingly, when we look at our blender renderings of the limousine, which replicate the Zapruder film, specifically frame 255, there are those darn reflections. Brunson suspected that the Zfilm had been subjected to, in her own words, a paint job, which means that she was probably the very first investigator to conclude that the Zapruder film had been extensively edited and altered. And this was way back in 1967 without the benefit of any modern digital analysis. I think that is quite remarkable, Larry.
On Beverly, right? I mean,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And technology, you know, graphics, computer graphics are, you know, proving her right.
Very good. Very impressive.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Don. We got a couple of
Yeah, well, Gary, we're down to 3 minutes, so we may want to continue to discuss these points that have already been made. Don, would you like to contribute?
Yeah, I would like to say, I mean, Larry's adding a lot of new info here, because, I mean, in the original frame 255, we see the big sprocket hole. It's like, well, what's going on there? And when you look at Larry's rendering, this is more of a true representation, I think, of what actually happened.
Yeah, it looks to me like Blender is going to lead us to several revelations that have heretofore utterly escaped notice, and it's only because of the introduction of modern technology that we're able to have them disclosed at all.
And I want to, and now that you're mentioning that, Jim, these computer graphics programs have been around for a while now, but nobody has ever applied it, and I'm thinking that, some of these people that have done all of these 3D renderings, to prove the single bullet theory,
Yeah.
and it's hogwash, because
Of course it is. It'll Blender will demonstrate as much as well, Larry.
I know.
No
And
doubt.
notice how when they do those, they don't give you the entire rendering of the Dealey Plaza. It's just very, very specific areas.
Right.
And
because they're trying to focus attention on what they want to convey, regardless of the actual situation and reality.
Yes, and we're just scratching the surface, because don't forget that what we want to do is we want to capture the perspective of each different witness.
Yeah.
In the plaza, so you're going to be able to see what everybody was seeing, what their line of sight was.
Sensational. You got a lot to work with too, with Sam Holland and Lee Bowers.
Yeah.
From their perspective, that's going to be fascinating, Larry.
Yeah. I'm working on the Bowers. I already have them, but I need to prove that Lee could have seen the motorcycle of Douglas Jackson motoring up the grassy knoll, because don't forget that he's a little far away and he's behind.
But there's no doubt that he saw it. I mean, his description was crystal clear.
Exactly. I know. Exactly. And I'm suspecting he saw it, through the grate, that grill, the pergola, that
Yeah.
the monument, the grill that unites, that joins both of them. You could see Elm Street through there. So I think that's how he saw it.
Gary, I think we're to the point where you may want to tie it together, my friend.
All right. Well, what we'll do, Don, we didn't get to your stuff, so give us a little preview of what to expect next week with your presentation.
Well, we're gonna go over the role of the international jury, kind of an overview in the JFK assassination.
All right. Keep those comments to a minimum there. So, all right. It's been another great show. All right. We just scratched the surface with Mark Lane and the witnesses that he interviewed. So we can do that at another time. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. JFK 155. We'll see you next week.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.